Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has been revealed and may be getting all the hype right now, but in the here and now in Season 4 of Warzone and Modern Warfare 3, it's still absolutely banging. What with Soap returning, the World Series of Warzone, the Kar 98K returning along with other weapons, new vehicles, new events, and new maps for Modern Warfare 3, there's a lot going on. So with this big update and a fresh start, I thought why not update my own graphics settings, and whilst I'm there, share them with you. Now I've set these settings up so they'll be optimum for most platforms in terms of actual in-game performance. So I'm talking about being able to see people as clearly as possible and having the highest frames per second without any bugs or glitches and things like that. And that begins with on-demand texture streaming. I recommend switching this off. Sometimes streaming those high-definition textures straight to your console can cause a little bit of lag and occasionally visual bugs. And to be honest, even with it switched on, you don't see huge differences in game. Next up, we have world motion blur and weapon motion blur. Switch these off and we can immediately just see clearer, and the same goes for film grain. For depth of field, switch this off as well. This ensures there's no extra blurring on the screen when we're aiming in. Then for fidelity FX CAS, I recommend switching this on, but then the strength of this very much depends on your console. On Xbox Series X, I like to switch it up to 90 to maybe 100. I find this sharpens the images and reduces the blurring in the game on Xbox Series X, but on older generation consoles, this might not be as big of an issue, and actually you could end up with something like screen tearing, or just jitteriness. If that's the case, switch it right down to between 0 and 30. Something else to note with this is that the higher you go, you are going to lose a few frames per second. Again, if you're on older generation consoles, you need to take that into account because you don't have a lot of frames to be playing with. For 120Hz refresh rate, switch that on if you do have the option. This ensures that we're playing at 120 frames per second when possible, so this is only applicable to PC players and newer generation consoles, so the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. It does of course require you to also have a monitor or TV that can actually run 120 frames per second or more as well. For field of view, make sure you've got this on over 100, and that's as an absolute minimum. I personally go 110. This allows us to see much more around us, but do remember that the higher you go with this, you're gonna lose frames per second. There's just a lot more game to process. On top of that, sometimes if you do run 120, it can be kind of hard to see people at a distance. Not a huge issue if you only play Rebirth Island, but if you do play some of the bigger maps, it does become an issue. So 110 works well for me. The ADS field of view, put this on affected. This ensures that when we aim in, we're still at the FOV that we've just set here. And then for weapon field of view, put this on wide. As it says on the right, the weapon looks a little bit smaller when it's on wide, so we can just see more of what's around us. For camera movement, put this on least. And then for brightness, I recommend 60, but really the good range I find is between 55 and 65. This, along with the other settings we're outlining here, just makes each map pop that little bit more. And with the Sheikah Island being retired, that's even more the case, since that was kind of the odd one out of the maps. It was a lot darker. For safe area, minimize this as much as possible. This brings the minimap closer to the center of the screen. Then we want to head over to interface, and specifically to color customization. Despite the big Season 4 update, I still recommend running Filter 2 as the color filter, and putting the intensity all the way up to 100. This, along with all of the other settings, makes the current map set on Warzone absolutely pop. So hopefully this does get things looking a lot better on your setup. And now that we're finished here, join me over in this video where I go over the updated best controller settings for this season as well.